Dear Dr. O'Connor and team, good evening everyone. My name is Giuseppe Napoli, and today I'm going to present to you my finding regarding development, planning and management of tourism in Australia. The aim of this research is to analyze and investigate the tourism development in Australia, as well as compare and contrast the negative or positive impacts that tourism can generate or create, especially when people are traveling from one place to another. First of all, I'm going to give you a brief introduction of Australia as a tourism destination based on Australian Travel Report 2016. The second step will help us to identify the three fundamental pillars of tourism industry identified in domestic tourism, inbound and outbound tourism. Once we have analyzed the three dimensions of tourism, we can analyze and evaluate the impacts that tourism can cause to host country, travelers, and evaluate the positive or negative impacts on the hosting environment, economic and social culture. Once we have analyzed the tourism impact, we can evaluate the tourism planning challenges and opportunity that Australia is currently facing or that country can benefit from. In fact, to guarantee the employment for both parties, tourists and host communities, national and international governments have to deeply analyze and evaluate the tourism impact and develop new policies and procedures in order to align the difference between cultures, different behaviors, and maintain a sustainable tourism within Australia, as well as the alliance with partners in order to maximize economic growth and society well-being. As the introduction, according to the Travel Tourism in 2016, the Australian travel tourism industry has been growing fairly strongly in recent years, and the industry is expected to grow at a similar rate going forward to 2020. However, according with the government of Western Australia, 2016, in order to guarantee the tourism growth in the country, Australian government is highlighting the importance of understanding the tourism industry as is arguing that tourism is a complex sector that involves a wide range of businesses working at different levels, from, for example, hotels, motels, tour operators and travel agents to service station and new agents. Tourism about obtaining experience in the tourism industry chain. Definitely people need to be motivated to travel. Secondly, people need to know what the holiday options are and what different destinations can offer. A booking needs to be made for accommodation, travel and tourism, and service providers such as tourist transports and accommodation operators need to deliver ultimately their products. Therefore, each parties in the chain contribute to overall holiday experience of the customers. They form part of the network of the wholesalers, retailers and providers of tourist products and service that together deliver a complete travel package. Tourism is a big picture of business. Therefore, understanding where your organization fits into the network will help Australia to manage it successfully. This is according to the Travel and Tourism 2016 again. Tourism Australia promotes Australia as a tourism destination internationally, domestically, and it undertakes the research and focus for tourism industry. The role of Tourism Australia is to stimulate sustainable international and domestic demand for Australian tourism experiences through industry leadership and coordination, and to influence the action of the industry tourism and travel marketing. Therefore, it urged to understand and championing a clear destination marketing strategy, identified and supporting the development of unique Australian tourism experiences, especially indigenous, Working with partners, we can extend Tourism Australia's influence people to travel to Australia, including for events, for instance, influence Australians to travel throughout Australia, including for events, help foster a sustainable tourism industry in Australia, which ultimately it will help to increase the economic benefits to Australia from tourism. Tourism industry. Therefore, the planning of tourism in Australia is based on three fundamental tourism pillars identified, as said previously, in tourism, domestic, inbound and international, and outbound tourism. According with Australian domestic statistic 2016, domestic tourism is the travel by Australian within Australia, and it can be the same day, overnight, or within the same states or territory. As well, according with the statistic, the domestic tourism is measured by Tourism Research Australia, TRA, or National Visitor Survey, NVS. The NVS is a kind of, let's say, a telephone interview which involves around 100,000 Australians with the main aim to identify the multiple traveling purposes, such as holiday, visiting with friends, or travel for work. This is according with Queen 2016. Inbound tourism. According with Australians Inbound Statistics 2016, the inbound tourism refer to short-term visitors' arrivals who intended to stay in Australia less than 12 months, and the process is also significant to contribute within the economy through its large portfolio of inbound tourism such as holiday, business and employment purpose. In fact, according with the Australian Travel and Tourism Industry report, inbound tourism is expected to generate total revenue of 86.5 billion in 2015, which is quite a big, large amount of money, representing a compound annual growth rates of 4.6% between 2011 and 2015. So therefore, we are seeing the continuing growth of the inbound tourism, which is, of course, it can generate even a more healthy for the country. Outbound tourism. According with the Australia Outbound statistic, the outbound tourism refer to short-term visitors that will travel overseas for less than 12 months, while inbound tourism is a source of foreign exchange and impacted positive on the GDP, gross domestic product. And it also creates employment and brings tax revenue to government. Outbound travel is a form of imports, and this effect on the country is largely in opposite direction. Therefore, according with Dwyer, Pine, Biago, Bailey and Marshall 2016, the outbound tourism is in Australia has increased last decade from 4.6 million to 7.4 million, which a growth of 8.4% per annum. On the other hand, according to Forsyth, Dwyer, Purr and Pham 2014, Australian residents who travel overseas will pay the tax, which can be used to lower other taxes or increase public spending in a budget neutrality scenario. Unlike the case of inbound tourism, the tax revenue effect for outbound tourism is not expected to be large from Australian economy. Therefore, it's always suggested that inbound tourism should be always more than outbound tourism. The outcomes. Therefore, international tourism is regarded as a special sort of international trade, and its economy significance is often discussed in relation to the national balance of payments accounts. And fact, inbound tourism is regarded as an export is an injection to the national economy output, recorded as a credit in the current account. However, on the other hand, outbound tourism is viewed as an import, which is a leakage of a national economy, and it appears as a debit entry into the current account. Therefore, a higher level tourism received from inbound tourism, along with a lower level tourism expenditure by outbound tourism, would contribute to the improvement of the country's balance of payments. According to Mason, for example, due to the nature of the tourism made by interaction between humans with local environments, economy, culture, and society 2015, we are talking about the tourism impacts. Tourism has a multifaceted impact and is difficult to control. Therefore, tourism development can have either positive or negative impacts on the hosting environment, economic and social culture, according to Mason. Therefore, tourism as well is beneficial for countries, for host countries too, but it can have the positive and the negatives at the same time. So let's see what is the positive and the negatives of those impacts. Political impact is one of the challenge that Australia is currently facing. In fact, political change can either increase or decrease a country's attractiveness for tourism, depending on what the change is. If a country is perceived as unsafe before the change, and the change results in a feeling of increasing stability, then the country can slowly recover of the natural state of tourism. There is no doubt that political unrest will cause people to think twice before moving in a tourist destination, upon being a tourist in a country. All the posts above give a great example of current situation to back them up. I also think that through the change for the better in the political climate of the country can cause an increase of tourism. However, again, as I mentioned previously, political unrest can cause uncertainty among tourists. That people tend to go to safe country, especially in those days, which definitely can impact the tourism in any destination worldwide. One of the front of tourism in Australia can be identified in indigenous tourism. For example, according with Whitford, Ronan and 2010, global indigenous tourism is steadily growing as an increasing number of indigenous peoples, including the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of Australia, which they have become integral part of the tourism industry. In Australia, as more indigenous communities look to utilizing tourism as a means for achieving a better economic future. Australian federal and state territorial governments have developed policy frameworks aimed at facilitating the growth of the small but significant sector of the Australian tourism industry. The next major milestone for Australia for the indigenous tourism development in the country occurred in 2003 when the Australian federal government's tourism, called the White Paper, was released. The White Paper announced, among other things, tourism offers particular opportunities from indigenous Australians, including much needed opportunities for employment, definitely social stability, and preservation of culture and traditions. Of course, there are pros and cons. Well, according to Marriott 2016, although Australia has a strong reputation for being an honest country in which to do business, the countries perform favorably on global measures of corruption. Australia has been criticized by international bodies in recent times for a perceived lack of attention paid to addressing corruption activities. However, McAllister, 2015, is stating that corruption is widely proved as a negative impact on social and economic life, which ultimately would be a detrimental factor for the nation's health. Furthermore, political corrupt nations have the potential to aggravate public health crime and social unrest, and that can negatively affect tourism businesses. This is according to Sasha and Yap, 2015. The economic impact is another issue that our country has to evaluate in order to develop a better tourism process, or better tourism planning. Tourism industry generates economic benefit for both host countries and tourists, especially in developing countries where the primary goal is to develop themselves as a tourist destination. Due to the economic impact, the public and private organization can benefit from it. And in fact, according to the Diver Palm, Yago, Bowden and Marshall 2016, Australian tourism industry is a substantial significance to Australian economy. Tourism total contribution to Australian GDP, which is gross domestic product, is 2011-2012. Between those years was around 41 billion Australian dollars, which is contribute to 2.8% to the total economy. Therefore, total tourism contribution, direct plus indirect, was around 87,000.25 million, or roughly approximately around 6% of the GDP. In 2011-2012, 5 million international visitors arrived in Australia, contributing of 25,000 million tourists in exports. Tourism employed directly 532,000 approximately persons, people representing 4.7% of Australia's total employment. Therefore, tourism is playing a key role in development of regional and rural areas, where 46% of the tourist dollar impact the growth of the tourism itself. The tourism impact, finish with a stating of Josh and Hamid in 2015, which infrastructures are vital and considered a determinant part of the tourism package and the economic growth of the hosting country. Without, let's say, infrastructure, it's almost impossible to host tourists or to invite tourists from other countries. The authorities are stating that their infrastructure should be built for locals and tourists. Therefore, identify public facilities such as a public toilets, phone, and ATM machines. The second stage involves, so therefore we have stages that our country has to evaluate. So first stage is phone and ATM machines, let's say public facilities. The second stage involves the creation of public transportation needed when tourists require to move from one place to another, which they could be, of course, when we're moving from place to place, from parks, museums, monuments, through buses, taxis, trains, or other form of transportation. In fact, according to Ryan Wilford and Maclan in 2015, Australia has an extensive product mix to offer to our tourists. And the range is a mix ranging from natural landscapes to city breaks, food and wine trails. Everyone knows the good and, let's say, on-trend Australian wine which is one of the attraction of the tourism at the moment, and the cultural heritage experiences as well due to its product mix. Australia has witnessed a remarkable growth into the Chinese inbounds as a result of being the first country to be granted approved destination status (ADS). The Chinese inbound tourism will guarantee economic growth by 2020 of almost 9 billion Australian dollars and continuous increase of employment within the country. However, on the other hand, a Curie 2016 is arguing that although by 2030 there will be over 3 billion people in the Asian middle class seeking international tourism opportunity in Australia, the lack of high quality facility will limit Australia's ability to capture and grow a huge share of the booming Asia travel marketing unless we invest today. Therefore, stepping back is very important that in each and every host country are building, and investing in infrastructures to support the tourism process and its overall development. Therefore, according to Mr. Shorten, it urged for the country to relocate 1 billion, which will be, let's say, invested in tourism infrastructure. This will definitely boost the partnership with the tourism sector and provide incentives for investment in the new and upgraded tourism infrastructures. Another fundamental impact of tourism is definitely reflecting in social culture. In fact, tourism affects in many ways the social and cultural life of locals, residents and tourists. Therefore, it's vital to understand the local resident attitudes and behavior towards tourism development and its social cultural impact. According with the published Portland and Pew 2015, it's crucial during tourism development that locals are involved in tourism planning in order to achieve through the tourism development and better quality life. For example, although indigenous tourism is considered a font of economic resource and revenue, there are also barriers to consider during the tourism experience. So each and every tourism experiences will definitely, let's say, creates a sort of barriers with the locals or towards a tourist. Therefore, it's very important to evaluate what are those challenges or barriers between tourists and locals. According to Ruohan, China in 2015, Chinese tourists responded were asked to identify some of the factors that they felt in terms of barriers. So, to their participation in indigenous tourism experience, while in Australia, time limitation, cost and distance to travel were all noted by those respondents or tourists. Firstly, respondents felt that there was a lack of information considered vital. Advertisement, promotion for indigenous tourism. So Chinese, they were attractive. They were very attractive for this form of tourism, which is the indigenous. Which of course, it will help them to explore the heritage of Australia. But there were kind of challenges over here again in terms of advertising, promotion, and lack of information. So neither claim they did not have a little knowledge about the available option, or neither they didn't have any experience about this new form of tourism. Secondly, a number of tourists responded raised that they were feeling like discomfort in presence of indigenous people. So there was this kind of a lack of not just the culture, but as well the way they were dressing. They felt tourists, in this case Chinese, are not comfortable with. However, To avoid social-cultural clashes, Chinese inbound operator suggested to provide, or to, let's say, to invest in kind of communication collaterals or materials, for example, brochures and interpretation services, and engage experienced Mandarin-speaking staff to translate the stories. I do remember one example of Walt Disney, the Disney World in Hong Kong. Initially, Walt Disney invest in Hong Kong with this American culture. So they were thinking that we do put the American culture in Hong Kong, and because it was successful, the rest part of the world, it would be successful in Hong Kong. Consequentially, it didn't work because the culture was quite straight to their culture. Therefore, there was this clash. That's why it was necessary to adapt for the Disney park in Hong Kong to adapt with American culture into the Chinese or the Mandarin culture, with let's say people speaking English, or tourists or visitors, or in forms of brochure and different kind of informations. Very important environment impact. Is international government, including Australia, are very keen in terms of environment. Environmental is not just attracting tourists, which are becoming more sustainable, but also it will ultimately increase the reputation of the country. And we will see through those slides why it's important and why it's important to face those environmental impacts at this stage. The quality of the environment is today considered essential for the success of the tourism. Despite the economic advantage that tourism generates, we have to also consider the negative environmental impact that tourism can cause on the environment and the local communities. According with the Nejat Mohammed Omar in 2014, the increasing volume of 1.6 billion on tourism by 2012 can cause increased congestion, noise and overcrowding, and it will have a negative impact on local air quality, vegetation, water quality and landscape. Tourism based on sand and sea is the largest, fast growing and the most lucrative sector of the tourism. In addition, according with Tourism Australia unveils campaign 2016, Tourism Australia has launched its latest campaign, which is focused on highlighting the country aquatic and coastal experiences. As well, John O'Sullivan, MD, Tourism Australia, saying that the new campaign will focus upon Australia's key competitive advantages. So, although the tourism can generate, let's say, and create an environmental impact, we do have a country such as Australia that's the main focus on aquatic or coastal experience, which definitely they need to adapt their strategy and in order to reduce this environmental impact, as we will see after. Already 70%, this is what the government of Australia is saying, that already 70% of our international visitors enjoy an aquatic or coastal experience as a part of the trip to Australia. So this is a campaign that they know will reasonably strongly across all their key markets. While Australia is known for its natural beauty, the world still doesn't have the full appreciation of Australia, of these natural resources, or the natural beauty was said. The world still doesn't have a full appreciation of the cost of the Australia. Probably because the country is, especially people who's coming from Europe or from USA, is the distance. It will be a key point. It will be a kind of challenge. It will be a kind of problem. However, there will be always an important part of our destination story. That's what the country, that's what the government say. They have never been taking the center stage. In fact, according with Papa Giorgio 2016, coastal and marine phases is home to a constantly growing number of human activities and facilities. Therefore, it's generating obviously income for each and every coast, each and every host countries. The most important of which are those related to coastal and marine tourism. Being one of the largest segments of the maritime economic sector, as well as the largest component of the tourism industry, coastal and marine tourism often raise controversies regarding the environment impact and the compatibilities with other human activities. Therefore, coastal activities can have its environment impact. Foremost, British, Pelagia and Sprague in 2015 are stating or highlighting the importance of sustainable tourism development of the coastal destination implies tourism development in the scope in the way that is long-term acceptable to the local community and doesn't disagree or radically change the environment. Therefore, on the other hand, it's important to notice that sustainable tourism development approach should be central principle of public policy planning that requires redefining the priorities in order to achieve sustainable tourism development. And the local government is responsible for planning and development of resources for tourism needs. Therefore, government has to get involved to protect the environment, to protect the coastal, to protect all these experiences that tourists once experience in our country. How? Through policies, policies planning, through laws, basically. Again, which is very vital, crucial to protect the environment. Why? Everyone is facing this climate change, we call global warming. Henrik Board, Smith, Thompson and Preston 2015 are stating that an increasing volume of research suggests coastal communities are vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, and which includes increase in storm surge, extreme weather events, and sea level rise can pose threats to the public health, safety and employment in a coastal zone. Therefore, this is the impact that the global warming or the climate change is currently generated due to the environment impact. Therefore, the potential severity of those impacts, threat of vulnerability within communities, and the importance of coastal zone to national economies have driven an agenda for action to prepare coastal communities for those impacts. Therefore, the government has to inform the locals and tourists as well that what it will be the impact of this climate change. What are the opportunities? We're talking about tourism planning. So government has to, Australian government has to be responsible for the impacts, social, cultural, political and environmental. Therefore, they have to plan ahead. So planning, tourism planning is important challenge for Australia, and not just for Australia, of course. Opportunity, according with the Australia 2020 report, the tourism industry consists of almost 280,000 enterprises that support the visitors' economy, from accommodation, cafes, casinos, tour companies, travel agents, transports, and generates, see if economy multiply supports the industry. Every dollar spent on tourism generates an additional 91 cents in other parts of the economy. This is according to Australia Report 2020. Higher than multipliers, meaning agriculture and financial service, for example. Tourism is more than holiday travel. is incorporating a broader visitor economy that include domestic and international travel for businesses, study and work, and for visiting family and friends. So tourism is kind of a complex process which is giving big opportunity for each and every host country. However, we do have challenges in terms of planning in Australia. And one of the challenges definitely is increasing competition and the rise of Australian dollar are two of the main significant challenges that currently facing the Australian tourism industry. Australian international market share has reduced in recent years and domestic tourism expenditure has fallen since 2000, so we have a kind of decline. Together with governments, the industry needs to work towards the 2020 tourism industry potential investment, which requires new products, boosting productivity again, marketing, increased uptake of digital and technology, and addressing labor and skill shortages, all of which will ultimately impact on improved products and service quality. There are currently 36,000 unfilled jobs in the tourism, while additional 56,000 or 152,000 jobs will need to fill to meet this potential. So there is a demand. However, Australia has to ensure that to reduce the gap in terms of demand with infrastructure or labor or skill level. 40,000 to 70,000 new rooms are required to meet that. Tourists are coming, therefore the infrastructure, hotels, motels, accommodation needs to be required in terms of room nights. Aviation capacity will need to grow by 40 to 50% for international and 23 to 30% for domestic to peak potential. Of course, people are moving from one country to another one, therefore they need the transportation. And this when we talk transportation, we talk aviation, we talk about flights, international flights. So it will be big opportunity for these all international flights. Only a third of Australian tourism operators have online booking payment facility. This is a kind of one of the technology, one of the points that I will mention for my recommendation. Definitely in 2016, going 2017, I would suggest it's not acceptable to 1/3 of tourism operators have online booking payment facility, which at this stage, at this let's say advanced technology equipment facilities, we should have almost 90% of the whole operators. We should have all the payment facilities. Anyway, tourism planning challenges in Australia. According to Ray Run and Johnson, Australia has set aggressive tourist growth forecast to until 2020, with a strategy to almost double overnight tourist expenditure. Therefore, the country is forecasting, but is over forecasting according with the investments they are providing at the moment. To achieve this forecast, significant investment in tourist product quality and development is required, therefore is mandatory. However, the Commonwealth government, Jackson reports, identified that Australia complex array of planning and regulatory requirements across states, territories, deliver a serious disincentive to prospective investors. Therefore, is not supporting investors at the moment. Also found out that the complexity and the length of approval process in many jurisdictions were a significant impediment to their development and investment. Therefore, the procedure, the process to get approval for investors is very long, that before getting the approval, the investor is already leaving the country, basically. It's the multiple and often overlapping legislative requirements affecting tourist planning and development. They are limiting development application and implementation. Destination policy. When we said it is important for Australia government to build new policy. process, put up this process of especially help investors to build their infrastructures in terms of hotels and motels rather than and slow the process, which it won't be beneficial, of course, for the Australian government. Therefore, the use of policy documents in planning for sustainability is quite vital, is crucial. When we talk about sustainability, is a kind of, it's not just the environment, but it's as well in terms of what we are doing to sustain the tourism overall. In fact, according to McLennan, Ronan and Whaler 2014, policies including sustainability and sustainable tourism policies are ideological innovation that can have a considerable impact on government policies. The industry and the broader community as well. It will help to overcome those challenges that are negatively impacted tourism. More recently, sustainability has reputably become a key driver of the social and political agendas in many countries, including Australia. Foremost, Coffee 2013 is arguing that while the need for more sustainable forms development is largely accepted, the means for bringing about such development remains a considerable challenge. In relation to government, a core requirement is establish a policy framework and setting which provide a means for focusing policy attention and promoting a more sustainable form of development. Thus, for many, sustainability represents the best way to address the economy, social and environmental effects, and of the myriads of environment issues facing human society, including biodiversity loss, soil erosion, pollution, waterways, ozone depletion, and climate change. So when you talk about destination policy, now we are talking about environmental policy, sustainable in terms of, again, all these environmental impacts, negative impacts that can affect the globe, that can affect the tourism himself in terms of biodiversity loss, soil erosion, pollution of waters or waterways, and ultimately climate change. However, to face those challenges and to overcome those challenges, the government, Australian government, has to looking for a partnership and alliances. In addition, according to Sturman 2012, rapid and unexpected change has become a norm of modern society. The world has become an increasingly volatile place with terrorism, healthy epidemics, economic crisis, changing consumption patterns, increasing food prices, food and water shortage, as well as global warming, as we mentioned previously, confronting many nations. Therefore, everything is changing, everything is becoming uncertain due to, of course, this healthy epidemics, economic crisis, and last but not least, one of the most important is definitely global warming. Arguably, the tourism industry must be prepared to address current and forthcoming challenges to maintain the availability of the sector and the resources upon which it depends. Thus, there is a need for proactive decision making and strategic planning by government, business, and other stakeholders in order to maximize opportunity, most probably minimize adverse impacts and maintain competitive advantages. According with Tourism Australia corporate website 2016, Tourism Australia works with partners in order to increase investment in promoting Australia through industry contribution, increase reach to house, target customers through both media and on partner channels, ensure conversion to booking and delivering return on investment from Australian tourism and economy, Tourism Australia is government agency responsible for attracting. So Tourism Australia is itself a government agency, which is responsible for attracting international visitors to Australia, and it works strategically with select event organizer, government and industry partner to maximize the marketing and immediate impact around major events for the country, for Australia. This is identified where events and festivals can be integrated in existing markets and public relation activities, hosting international media and visiting opinion leaders programs, creating joint international marketing strategies, and assisting events organized to develop new imaginary and marketing collateral for promotion purposes. The event partnership programs provide marketing and public relation leveraging support, and it does not provide sponsorship or direct funding for events. This is an example. 2015, Tourism Australia worked with more than 200 partners on a range of activities to promote Australia to the world as a destination for businesses and leisure. And the last financial year, Tourism Australia worked within 17 airlines, partnered in 6 international markets, jointly investing around 30 million Australian dollars. Tourism Australia has long-term marketing agreements with the 7 airlines, which outline a spirit of cooperation and match investment in key international markets. Virgin Australia is one of these examples, New Zealand, which is the closer country, Singapore Airlines, Etihad, so that's we talk about Emirates, China, Southern China, Eastern, and Air China. Tourism Australia has also worked with the airlines on market-specific campaigns. In 2015, and Tourism Australia plans to work with 22 airlines on marketing them across our key international airlines. Therefore, is going to expand the vision, not just, let's say, from Malaysia, Singapore, China, or Dubai or Abu Dhabi, but as well is going to go to probably European markets or American markets. Conclusion. It is a summary of what we're discussing. The Australian travel and tourism industry grew by 2.7% in 2015, and it reached value of almost 86.5 billion Australian dollars billion, with an increasing forecast of 23.9, equal to 107.2 billion by 2020. However, the country has to take in consideration the rising competition of more countries and recognizing the potential of international tourism and competing vigorously for visitors with some key competitors increasing investment. This is according to Travel and Tourism in Australia 2016. Therefore, there is big opportunity, but they have to as well look into different markets to analyze what it could be the competition, the potential competition between nations, between international tourist destinations. The current role of the governments in international tourism industry delivers strong results for Australia. It increases living standards by 6 times more than its cost taxpayers. Therefore, tourism is very vital for, while also exchanging equity and the fiscal balance. Tourism grows faster than Australian industry average, and the global tourism growth is expected to go faster than the global GDP average over the next 2 decades. So the forecast, although was aggressive, is reflecting to the reality. That's why, as a conclusion, Australia really needs to focus tourism. Australia's international tourism industry, guided by Tourism 2020 strategy, is seeing an unprecedented levels of cooperation across federal government agency between jurisdictions and industry. There are many challenges ahead. One of that is definitely, it could be identified from a visa process to the second airport in Sydney. But current institutional structures and strategy are in place for this industry to rise those challenges. And the opportunity hand that back our competitive strength is in international tourism. Therefore, it is the opportunity, and this country is working. So, however, he needs to speed up the process of visa for tourists, for foreigners, and most probably build the second airport, which will guarantee more tourist flow. Recommendation: grow and maintain demand from Asia. Asia is considering, including China, is considering that the country that it will lead the inbound tourism in the global scenario. While marketing investment across a balanced portfolio marketing is required, Australia has a unique opportunity to drive demand from Asia. Number one, because it's close. However, over the 2010-2020 year period, Asia is expected to contribute more than half of the projected growing international visitation or travels, with 42% of the growth expected to come from China. Therefore, focusing China, this is vital, is crucial. Most countries in Asia have growing economies with good consumer confidence, and with the growing of the middle class, especially China, India, and Indonesia, could give a big boost to the economy. And however, the tourism process needs to be supported, especially with Australia is a near Western developed country, an English-speaking country with a strong destination appeal. Industry and government need to deepen consumers' understanding, strengthen distribution, develop tailored marketing campaigns, and an appropriate product, as well as relevant policy frameworks. When we're talking about digital, build competitive digital capability. At the moment, technology on other parts of the world is much stronger than Australia. So strong digital capability is essential in both marketing Australia and the distribution of products. 8% of Australians are online, and by 2020, 66% of the world is expecting to be online. Therefore, technology is always increasing, and therefore people need to be provided with technology. Everything is happening online at the stage, at this time. So currently 1/3 of some tourism operators have online booking payment facility, limiting their ability to service customers both domestic and overseas. Therefore, this is crucial for Tourism Australia to really boost this tourism through new technology and provide technology facility to everyone within the country, including operators. Governments will continue to work with the industry to ensure more tourism enterprises are able to take advantage of online opportunities. Encourage investment and implement the regulatory reform agenda. Tourism is currently faces a disappropriate regulatory burden, and that impact negatively on investment. Government should and it will work with the industry to reduce the barriers to invest, so that industry can invest in the products and infrastructure consumers, that's what are seeking really. Ensure tourism transport environment support growth. The tourism transport capacity and infrastructure need to allow increasing number of visitor travelers. That's what we were talking before. If the tourism are increasing, automatically and consequentially has to increase the infrastructure from and within Australia. Governments it should work in partnership with the industry to ensure the supply of transport capacity and infrastructure continues to move ahead of demand and facilities rather than hinders tourism and traffic. Increase supply of labor, skills, and indigenous participation. The tourism industry has a labor shortage of 36,000, as we previously mentioned, and employee vacancy rates of 4 times the national average. That is preventing part of the industry from effectively serving global customers. By 2015, an additional 56 people will need to accord the vacancies, and this is including the skilled positions. Governments should work with the industry to support industry recruitment, retention, labor mobility, education, and more important, training to reduce those gaps and explore ways to increase the supply of skilled tourism labor in indigenous participations. Building this resilience, productivity, and quality. Indus productivity is low compared to the rest of the Australian economy, and tourism at a mass in compared to those countries. This is limiting Australian tourism operators' ability to provide consumers with value for money experience. Building on Australia's competitive advantages, governments will work with industry to increase industry productivity, innovation, and quality. Therefore, they need to really build Australia in terms of a competitive advantage, giving this money experience to the operators, which will give the consumers better, let's say, better perception of the tourism within the country. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all the best. Thank you, Dr. O'Connor, to sharing your professional experiences with us. Thank you, team. Thank you, dear classmates, for your participation and to sharing your knowledge with me. And I wish you all the best for the future courses, and see you soon. Thank you so much. Thank you.